Welkom op de Dominique Stulens Podcast Show. Ik ben vandaag hier met Julie Brown en ik ben heel vereerd, want Julie heeft heel veel dingen te doen en ze heeft toch de tijd genomen. Hè? Je hebt de tijd genomen om naar hier te komen in Orphegrand. Dus daar ben ik heel dankbaar voor. Ik vind het ook heel fijn dat ik die eer krijg om dit met u te doen. En ik denk dat het vandaag ook nog eens een speciale dag is, want je hebt ook iets aan te kondigen.
Ja, wel eerst en vooral bedankt voor je uitnodiging. Gisteren was de aankondiging van mijn nieuwe boek.
Ja.
De pressrelease en dat begint de promo. Het komt uit op 23 mei.
Ja.
Noemt Discover Your Pivot.
Yes.
En bedankt dat ik mocht dat zeggen.
Ja, absoluut.
Ja.
Ik denk, het komt eigenlijk goed uit. Want onze podcast, we hebben elkaar... wanneer was het? In december of zo?
Ja, op een koude avond.
Ja,
regenachtige avond.
Ja, absoluut.
Ja.
En het feit dat ik een jaar in Amerika heb gewoond als uitwisselingsstudent, jij stond daar een Amerikaanse dame die dan ook nog eens een keynote in het Nederlands geeft. Ik vond dat al geweldig om te zien. Dus alleen dat al triggerde mij. En het verhaal natuurlijk achter alles wat je verteld hebt. Hè, want je bent een vrouw van Dixie Dansercoer. Is dat de juiste manier uitgesproken? Of
Absoluut.
Ja? Okay.
Absoluut.
Belgische, hoe kan ik hem eigenlijk beschrijven?
Polar Explorer, ja. Poolreiziger, ontdekkingsreiziger.
Van Nieuwpoort is hem, hè?
Nieuwpoort geboren, getogen in het Leuvens, in Vlaams-Brabant. En hij zei altijd een world citizen, maar hij kwam altijd terug naar België. Ja. België was zijn thuis.
Ja. En je bent ook moeder van 4 kinderen?
Ja, we hebben 4 kinderen samen. Ik ben stiefmoeder van 3. Maar eigenlijk moeder van de ganse plug.
Ja, fantastisch. Dus, en je bent eigenlijk heel veel bezig met leiderschap.
Absoluut.
En daar gaat uw boek eigenlijk ook weer over. Dus zelfleiderschap is daar ook heel belangrijk in. Mm-hmm. De podcast die ik geef is hier voor meestal... Want ik moet lachen, want de vorige keer had ik een podcast... ik zet op LinkedIn en op sociale media kondig ik natuurlijk de podcast aan. En vorige keer had ik Veerle de Witte van de Standaardboekhandel, die hier ook op podcast is gekomen. Enfin, ik ben eigenlijk bij haar gegaan, maar wel in de podcast. En ik benoemde dat de podcast is voor ambitieuze vrouwen die een volgende stap willen zetten, die eigenlijk handvaten nodig hebben om toch te gaan waarvoor dat ze willen gaan, in de authenticiteit en met de intuïtie. En ik kreeg een berichtje van, ja, maar voor mannen is dat ook wel interessant, hoor. En eigenlijk wel, hè. Het hoeft niet alleen voor vrouwen te zijn. Uiteraard hebben wij als vrouw zo bepaalde dingen waar we toch ergens meer aandacht aan kunnen besteden, maar even zozeer voor mannen. Dus als de mannen hier luisteren, meer dan welkom. En ik denk dat Julie er zeker over kan meespreken, want ze is je bent toch veel omringd door mannen ook, hè?
Wel, ja, ik denk dat de avontuurlijke sfeer is een tot recentelijk een mannelijke sfeer. Ja. Maar je hebt meer en meer vrouwen natuurlijk die hun plaats nemen. En bijvoorbeeld, we hebben ons eerste vrouwelijke kids. Karin is bij ons gekomen. Maar ik denk dat mensen, wij denken zo vaak in labels, van mannen en vrouwen en Amerikanen en Europeanen. En soms denk ik aan gewone mensen. Ja. En als wij zo beginnen, dan is leiderschap, denk ik, half gewonnen.
Dat vind ik ook, ja. En dus de titel die ik er vandaag aan wilde geven, ik had hem in het Engels doorgestuurd. Leadership is a liability or an asset? And how do you look at it, right? So,
ik vond dat zo thought-provoking, want en nu ga ik naar het Engels toe, want ik hoor het woord asset. Leadership was for me always I never thought about it as a liability, a responsibility, maybe, of course, a heavy responsibility. But for me, it's an asset to have the privilege to be a good leader, a strong leader, an effective leader.
Yeah.
And that has, of course, many levels by which we measure.
Yes.
But I never thought of it as a liability. I do know the weight of being a leader, both professionally and personally. But if we do it with the right intentions,
yes,
and we are mindful in the decisions that we make, which is asking a lot when everything's shooting at us from all over.
Absolutely.
I think that's an asset.
Yeah.
Yeah. Never thought of it as a liability.
No, because you're not in there as a you're too good in leadership that liability might
Dat
not
weet ik
be.
niet.
Yeah, well.
Dat weet ik niet.
But the thought I had behind it was, I see leaders sometimes getting promoted in the job, and they do it probably with the right intention, but it could also be that unconsciously they're taking it because of their ego. And the fact that they get a nice title and they get a higher salary and they're getting in the job with the sense of, here I am.
Yeah.
Now I have the power and I can take decisions. I have worked in a corporate world with a lot of men around me as well. Not that I have an issue with that, but at that level where I was in the management, it usually was more men than women in any case. It was a long time ago. But great people, honestly. But you could measure those that were there for the title and the power.
Absolutely.
And so they forgot sometimes how important leadership can be as an asset. And that's why I was thinking this, when I was writing this, like, sometimes people might not realize, but they actually go into leadership with taking that as a liability rather than an asset.
I do believe that in these times, leaders like that, even though some of them are quite high profile in the world, there's still fewer of them than in leaders today who are being pretty much forced to be transparent.
Yes.
Not the transparency and vulnerable. That's for me a very important word, because vulnerable doesn't mean weak.
No.
Exactly. Vulnerable just means you're exposed.
Yes.
And exposure is a good thing. We have, of course, in the geopolitical sphere, we have world leaders who exemplify what you're talking about. The ego is the only thing, apparently, in their decision making. But they're also the few. They're just the louder ones. And so we're paying attention. Well, they're also the ones who can make the most damage. So we pay attention to that. Leadership, however, today has too many windows that expose our actions. And that's a good thing. That's a good thing. That means we're held accountable. Being held accountable is also something that can feel unfair at times, because there's an immediacy of our exposure today, especially with internet, with social media. Yeah. So I do believe there's something about these leaders who are not given the chance to have the proper amount of time to work through a decision. But that's a whole other topic. But in retrospect, the idea of ego, we all have ego.
And it's good to have the right ego as well. Huh?
It's good to accept that ego is there. When we make big decisions in life, if the ego is the only one making the decision, then we probably will pay the price later. But I think our leadership styles today are very different, hopefully, than they have been in the past.
Yeah, we were talking about the VUCA world that is now a Bani world, and people that don't know what the VUCA and the Bani world is, it's actually just big change. That's VUCA. And the fact that it's volatile, and it's you are with ambiguity and things like that, where the Bani world is very chaotic. And this is a world in which we are, and we have so many generations on that we have to work together with. And you have to also understand what those generations are, what their needs are. So your leadership style needs to evolve all the time. And it's that constant change that is happening. And you were talking in your book about...
Well, I used the word change management to introduce the topic, but I renamed it to reality management.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, that's just what we all...
Exactly.
That's what we all deal with.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And I think there's something so important in just accepting the fact that change is constant, which is, of course, a very trite expression, but change has always been constant. We're not the only people and the only generations today facing volatile moments. We just went through the 80th anniversary of the VE Day, the Victory in Europe Day, and from World War II. It was an occupied continent by a very hostile or several hostile regimes. It's something incredibly important to remember. We're not alone. We're not unique. We have different tools. We have different, different speeds that I will give. Speed is very important to me as a leader, to slow things down at times.
Yeah.
Get people to be more mindful. I'm a firm believer that if every leader worked in a mindful way, then
it would be a better world.
Then most battles are already halfway won.
Yeah, absolutely. And honestly, I'm giving those workshops in organizations to help leaders as well to get more conscious about their leadership style and to what you were saying, self-leadership as well. And you hear them saying, can you be vulnerable? Because that means that you're weak. And that's what they need to try to understand, that people work with people. And so they need to see that if you lead by example, then you can show those things, because you want to make sure that they are feeling safe to also show what happens to them.
Safety is an interesting concept to me. Always has been, I suppose, because we all have a different perception of what is risk, what are calculated risks. And through various life experiences, I've been privileged to discover that, of course, there are mindless risks that people take, or dangerous risks that people take. But most of the things that are really tragic that happen blindside us. They come out of a moment. We were talking earlier about sudden unexpected storms and flooding.
Yeah.
We're sitting right now in a normally rainy Belgian landscape that is as dry as a bone.
Yeah.
These are things that no one expected, especially because we're coming out of a very dark and rainy winter.
Yes.
It's a small example, but a very powerful one. We will have tragedies, both professionally and personally. Yeah. That's part of life.
It's part of life. And I always say it's actually a good thing in a way. I have had my shit, so I can say it. But I think it's also if you can look at it that way, it's also to realize what has been good and what has been going well.
Yes. Yes. It's an active requirement to choose the positive, to choose joy, to choose the beauty around us, to, instead of seeing the qualities about a colleague, for example, that are irritating to us personally, looking for what are the positives of that person. And I'm not a naive person. There are certain people who it's a lot of work to find something positive about them.
Yeah.
And I can only imagine that in teams, we're trying to get people to work together where there are all of these different personalities. But that's the beauty of it.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's the patchwork quilt of humanity, that when we come together and we find the commonalities, which a strong leader helps remind people of on a daily basis. That's the goal we're going for.
Yeah.
Yes, that may feel important today, but the goal's there. Gently steering people back, like a shepherd in the mountains, gently getting that herd back together and pointed in the right direction.
That's what I call then an asset, indeed. But when you have those leaders that are dominant, not really listening, just willing to put their thing on the table, I want to call this more for them than a liability. Then it can be an asset for them personally. I'm not talking about the team, obviously, but
well, they're a liability to the team and to the broader company that they work for, or their own enterprise. If they're an entrepreneur, that type of leadership can't last forever.
No, and it's very tiring, I must imagine, as well, because you don't get. I mean, you have to battle all the time
All the
against
time.
other people, against even yourself, even if you're not conscious about it. But I think it must be very tiring.
It's important to have compassion for these types of leaders. Absolutely.
I like that word.
Yes, compassion. We talked about that. Compassion is everything. However, at certain moments, we have to stop the damage.
Yeah.
And I think as a global society, the human condition right now is in desperate need of leaders to step up and say, okay, it's enough now.
Mm-hmm.
We have certain things going on that just cannot continue
for
all of us. And those leaders are slowly starting to emerge, which gives me hope, because it means that they weren't the reactive humans in the very beginning. They were the people taking their time to absorb what's happening, to analyze, to critically make possible solutions. En now they're starting to step up.
Ja. Dus ik ga eventjes terug in het Nederlands over. Ik ben eigenlijk benieuwd, want ik heb u niet gevraagd u echt voor te stellen, maar ik denk dat je het door uw verhaal wel gaat doen. Maar leg me eens heel eventjes uit, hoe zijt je eigenlijk tot het leadership gekomen? Hoe zijt je daar eigenlijk toegekomen? Want ik denk dat je in het onderwijs stond, in Amerika.
Ja.
En je hebt ook voor luchtvaartmaatschappij gewerkt.
Absoluut.
Dus een heel andere wereld.
I've been all around. Ja.
Het is wel interessant om even te horen hoe dat verhaal opgestart is.
Wel, ik wist niet eigenlijk, met dit boek was ik geforceerd om terug te blikken kijken, van gans mijn leven eigenlijk. En ik was verbaasd van het feit dat ik koos leiderschap posities doorheen mijn jaren. Ja. Zelfs als kind. Student council bijvoorbeeld. Of wij hadden een soort een groep vrienden en wij vonden in de groep dat ik niet alleen, maar er waren mensen die konden op een bepaald moment zeggen, oké, dat is genoeg, we gaan dat doen of we gaan dat doen. Of... En dan die
automatische leidingopname.
Blijkbaar. Blijkbaar, nu zie ik dat heel duidelijk. Als leerkracht Engels en geschiedenis in de Verenigde Staten, dat is leiderschap. You stand in front of a class and you're teaching.
Wel, hè?
And you're empowering these wonderful young minds to get out there and do their thing in the world. En dan als flight attendant bij Delta Airlines en dan later Sabena. Ik ging default onmiddellijk in de leiderschapprogramma. Dat betekent dat de purser in Europa, zeggen ze vaak. So on the airplane, ik was vaak in de leiderschappositie. En dat was... De reden was eigenlijk... I could hold better trips. Ja. Dus ik kon naar de bestemmingen vliegen waar ik wou. Want voor mij vliegen was over de bestemming.
Ja, dus het reizen was wel heel belangrijk voor u. Of was altijd geweest?
Altijd. Ja. Altijd.
Nog iets in het gemeen. Ik ook.
Ja.
Heb je al eens geteld hoeveel landen dat je bezocht hebt?
Nee, iemand geeft me... Ik heb in mijn zolder een van de wereldkaarten waar je kan... Ja. Maar ik weet zeker de 7 continenten. Ja. En dan moet ik beginnen te zoeken...
Ik heb het eens gedaan met mijn kinderen. Want ze wilden weten. Ik denk, dat weet ik niet. Dan gaan de oefeningen eens doen. Kom aan 72.
Allee.
Dat is ook al niet slecht, hè?
Dat is veel. Ja, ik moet het doen. Ik moet dat dringend doen. Ja, Europa. Je hebt de continenten zoals Europa of Azië of... Oceanen. I only went to Australia. Wanneer was dat? 2017, denk ik. Dus leiderschap als flight attendant op het vliegtuig. Samenwerken met de captain, de zaakvoerder. En dan in de wereld van poolreizigen en guiding en expeditions. Ik dacht altijd dat Dixie de leider was. En effectief op het ijs was dat zo. Maar nu zie ik dat wij waren samen, zeker met onze zaak, wij waren partners. Dat was een mooi gelijmd partnership van leiderschap. En
waar heb je Dixie eigenlijk leren kennen? In Amerika?
Nee, in Zaventem. Op het vliegtuig, eigenlijk.
Serieus?
In het vliegtuig.
Oh, geweldig.
Wij waren collega's. Dus ik was de Delta flight attendant on the Sabina code-share program. So we had 2 Delta flight attendants in the Sabina crew to take care of our Delta passengers. En ik heb hem leren kennen in begin augustus van 1997.
Oh, wow.
In de briefing, in de pre-flight briefing.
Geweldig.
Ja. En ik zag, hij noemde zichzelf Dixie, maar op mijn crew manifest, ik zag Dirk. Dirk. Ja. So I thought, who is this guy? En we hadden
waar heeft hem die naam dan van, Dixie?
Hij was uitwisselingsstudent, EFS-student in
ook?
Idaho.
Oh, geweldig.
Ja. En hij kwam aan en zijn hostbroer zei, ja, Dirk, they're going to call you Dirk the Jerk. You need another name. And so, you like music. Dixieland Jazz. Ja, Dixie.
Oh, that's where it comes from.
Ja, en in de Verenigde Staten is Dixie eigenlijk meer vrouwelijke naam. Dus wij vonden dat altijd grappig. Dat Mr. Adventure.
Ja.
Noemde zichzelf Dixie.
Want er zijn waarschijnlijk luisteraars die Dixie niet kennen. Hè?
Ja, natuurlijk.
En dus misschien kort beschrijven wat dat hij deed. Want jullie zijn dan van flight attendants. Zijn jullie eigenlijk helemaal op een ander pad gegaan?
Eigenlijk wel. Hij was zoals mij. Wij zijn allebei flight attendants geworden om de wereld te ontdekken.
Ja.
Om te reizen.
Ja.
En in die reizen had Dixie de kans om bepaalde plekken te ontdekken, maar andere plekken niet. Zoals Antarctica, Arctic. En hij begon stilletjes aan via alpinisme in de bergen niet alleen te ontdekken, maar te zien wat waren zijn sterktes. En hij vond dat hij kon heel goed tegen de kou.
Ja.
Hij had ook een heel goede gevoel op de glaciers.
Mm-hmm.
En er was een aantrekkingskracht. Dus hij begon in 1995 zijn eerste poolexpeditie in Groenland. Ja. Samen met Alain Hubert. Ook een Belg. En zijn getrouwde broer op het ijs, zou ik zeggen. En dan in 1997, het jaar waar we hebben elkaar leren kennen. Ik heb Dixie leren kennen 2,5 maanden voor zijn vertrek naar Antarctica. En zijn eerste Antarctische expeditie heeft hem bekendgemaakt. Niet alleen in België, maar in de wereld. Ze hebben een wereldrecord gebroken.
Ja.
100 dagen de continent van Antarctica doorkruist. Te voet en met kites. En dat heeft ons leven compleet veranderd. Dus in die 4 maanden hebben wij waren apart na een heel intens begin. Ineens 4 maanden apart. En wij waren allebei gescheiden. Dus wij wisten, oké, dit is iets heel uniek. Ja. En wij moeten het koesteren en wij moeten proberen. Hij was papa van 3 kinderen. Dus voor mij was dat een no-brainer. Wij gaan wonen waar de kinderen wonen. Dus ik heb in 1998 besloten om naar België te komen wonen. En tegen 2001 waren wij allebei gestopt met vliegen. En poolexpedities gevormd in iets meer profound. Meer iets dat wij konden gebruiken om terug te geven. Want veel mensen hadden vragen over hoe doe je dat, hoe begin je daaraan, hoe organiseer je de logistiek, de communicatie. Wat zijn de tips en tricks van iets zo moeilijk te doorstaan. En so together we built.
Want jij bent altijd een beetje in de schaduw gebleven, hè?
Ja, mijn eerste expeditie, mijn langste expeditie was 6 weken in Antarctica. En dat was met de millennium, de wisseling van 1999 naar 2000. Ja. Dus ik stond op Antarctica met dat moment. En dat was levensveranderend voor mij.
Je ziet het, je straalt helemaal.
Ja, dat is iets dat maakt een mens
Dat verandert
zo
je wel.
nederig. Je bent zo klein en zo dankbaar van de kans te hebben om daar te zijn. En tegelijkertijd, die 6 weken, voor mij levensveranderend. Voor hem, het was vakantie. Ja. Heb ik geleerd wat het was op het ijs. Letterlijk te werken, te functioneren. Ja. En dan wist ik, oké, ik kan dat logistiek managen. Nu weet ik wat het is. En ik kan voor hem de manager worden van wat hij doet.
Mm-hmm. Een asset zijn voor hem.
Hopelijk heeft hem dat beschouwd. Maar we hebben het zo graag gedaan. En dat was ook een soort controle van bijvoorbeeld communicatie. Je wil niet op het ijs snel een telefoontje krijgen over iemand terug in België met een kind die stout is, of een kapot frigo, of een slecht nieuws, of goed nieuws, of iemand die belt en een appeltje knabbelt, waar je weet, je gaat geen appeltje eten voor de volgende 3 maanden. Er zijn nuances in wat een poolexpeditie is. En dat was voor mij mijn leerervaring. 6 weken is lang om daar te zijn. En ik heb zoveel geleerd. Ik heb het allemaal opgesloopt. Ja. En dan hebben wij vanaf die moment hebben wij Polar Circles gerund tot voor 21 jaar samen. Ja.
Ja, want uiteindelijk, je bent de sterke vrouw achter de sterke man.
Dankjewel. Ja,
dat is het wel. Hè?
Dankjewel.
Want je hebt er nu uiteindelijk ook je werk van gemaakt om in dat, vanuit de ervaring die je daar meegekregen hebt, helpt je nu die leidinggevende om waarschijnlijk ook beter die organisatie en het, hoe dat je erin staat. Enfin, ik ben nu een beetje voor u aan het praten, maar daar komt het eigenlijk op neer, denk ik. Wat maakt dat je op dat moment in die wereld gemerkt hebt van hier zou ik eigenlijk leiders verder mee kunnen helpen?
Ik denk dat het verbazend duidelijk was dat zoals iedereen die in een vak een world-class polar explorer or a top athlete or a top business person, a leader, needs a team to help that person see beyond the tunnel vision that we have when we're so focused on something. And I was a tennis player between the ages of 12 and 18. I spent an enormous amount of time on the tennis court. It was my passion. Yeah. And so I learned at a young age what that tunnel vision could mean when you really love something and you're focused on something and you want to succeed at something. But it also meant I needed people around me to help me remind myself there were other things that were important, or help me see the things I might be missing. And so, het was verbazend duidelijk dat Dixie iemand nodig had om het leven rond de expedities te managen. Zodanig dat hij kon focussen op execution op het ijs. En preparation. The preparation phase of a polar expedition, that's sometimes 2-3 years.
Oh, wow.
Of internationally, from permits and the I call it the schmoozing, the people you have to go and meet in very far away places like Russia or South Africa or Patagonia, the people who are the saving grace of expeditions, the people who run the emergency services, the people who host you. We don't just show up in an Inuit village in Greenland or northern Canada or Siberia or Scandinavia. We don't just show up. We have to earn our ability to be guests there and show respect to the local people. I was able to raise our daughter, bringing her to these places.
Oh, wow.
Resolute Bay in northern Canada to Iqaluit in Nunavut in Canada to Alaska, Ushuaia. So there was an enormous amount of work, and it gave me pleasure to help him manage that. And that on top of it, it gave our family the ability to feel close to their dad, because there were 4 children missing their father for a long period of time. And so there was a sense that even though the children didn't get on the phone every night, we had a 24-hour call that I could then look at the children and say, yeah, everything's fine.
Yeah.
All this is okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you came into that role a little bit naturally. It was not like planned, really.
Yeah. Like many things in life.
Yeah, absolutely.
Poof. Yeah.
And then now you take it, I'm going to use the word again, but you took it as an asset to go and get into the world with a new mission.
Yes. Yes.
Because Dixie unfortunately passed away in 2021.
Yes. On June 7th. We're looking at 4 years coming up. Yeah. And he passed away in Greenland on an expedition. So
doing the thing he loved.
Doing what he loved, but that's not why he went out there.
No.
And I think that was the hardest thing for his colleagues in the world of polar exploration. Dixie was known as such a conservative adventurer. He and Alain were given the nicknames the grandmothers on the ice, or the ladies on the ice, because they used ladies' eye cream to protect their eyes, not from wrinkles, but from sun cream.
Yeah.
Because you have to use so much sun protection, and sun cream can sting the eyes. And when you have a base layer of a neutral eye cream, so I taught them that, and the other adventurers were teasing them. Yeah, losing someone who you think it could never happen to him, and it did, is just another wake up call that accidents happen.
Yeah. And
with all of the hindsight, with all of the review that such an accident requires, the global warming and climate change environmental aspect is so much a part of it. That these crevasse zones that he found himself in with the one other expedition, or our client, these were not there the year before, not in that place. And these are the types of things that force us to have reckoning with what our actions are. It's not the only component of a very tragic accident, but it's a large component of it.
Yeah.
And so it's something that encouraged me. It's one of the factors that had me encouraged to keep going with our company, and with the guides that Dixie personally trained and personally chose to bring in.
They're still on.
They're just wonderful humans. Their loyalty to Dixie's legacy, to me, to each other. I'm very, very, very fortunate. We decided to keep going from the beginning. I think we verbalized the intention to keep going. I think it was 3 weeks after he passed. Wow. We met live and everyone was in.
Awesome.
Yeah.
And you let that. You took it.
I think in that moment we let each other.
Yeah.
I would not take credit for that. No, we let each other. Eric Bonhem from Expeditions Unlimited is my travel and logistics partner, who handles the bookings of what we do when we take people out on guided expeditions. And I would say Eric and I and the team, this was a common decision, because it affected everyone deeply. And to decide to go forward was incredibly courageous if I look back on that.
I think so as well.
I didn't feel it at the time. It just felt kind of normal. Like, let's just keep going.
Yeah.
And since then we've brought in 3 more people. It took 3 more people to replace Dixie, I think. Wow. So that gives you the idea of his energy and his talents and his passion.
Yeah. So who were you? Let's put it this way. You were a person with him. Who have you been, or who are you without him? And then I'm thinking about self-leadership as well in this.
I'm the same. I'm who I always was. My actions are different in the way I'm more out there.
I was going to say, you're more the face now of polar circles and expeditions, no?
Yeah, I mean, it's the company Polar Circles has 100% of the shares, or it's me, but it's not me. It's this team and this legacy that is so profound, that still inspires people. That it's just beautiful to hear people still. I mean, 4 years is a long time.
Yes.
And the fact that Dixie's legacy is still this very palpable energy around all of us and what we do.
He's still very present in the center of everything you do.
We have these pictures that our son, I'm so grateful to Tess. He and his girlfriend said, instead of giving out a typical paper at a memorial service, we'd like to give these laminated pictures of Papa that people can carry, their credit card size, and people can carry them in their wallets. Mm-hmm. And our guides carry these with them out on the ice in the most remote places, and then they'll pop the picture in and take a picture for us to see that Dixie's there. And these sorts of things are proof to me that there are legacies of humans that deserve to live on. Mm-hmm. As long as we can help them to live on. And so the person I am today is the person I always was. I'm just living different external actions than I did before. And that's a good thing. That's called evolution.
Yes.
That's life.
Revolution?
Okay, evolution. I'm a little bit of a rebel, but I'm not. I'm a healthy rebel. Dixie was more rebellious than me, I would think. But no, I'm a healthy rebel. You'll see my revolutionary side pop up when I sense that justice is truly at peril.
You feel comfortable in raising your voice when you're not agreeing with something, or
absolutely,
yes.
But I'm not a reactionary person. Mm-hmm. I've learned that I have
to temper it sometimes, or is that the wrong word?
I think I temper it most of the time. I have had people tell me that they think it's constructive criticism, that perhaps I should be more assertive, but I'm very assertive. I'm very assertive.
But in a soft way.
Well, I take my time.
Yeah.
I take my time and I let it
sink.
And if that time doesn't work for someone else's timeline, then perhaps we're not meant to be working together. Mm-hmm. But I have yet to make a decision that I took my time deciding upon that I've regretted. Mm-hmm. I have very few regrets in my life, which means that asking me to speed up or asking me to react, like in the traffic, maybe I react once in a while, but I try to do it with humor when people are stressed around me. And so that means that I'm not going to be that person to tell you that I've changed because of my husband's death or my business partner's loss. I'm who I always was. People are probably just seeing it now.
I want to see it.
I hope so.
Differently.
Or well, I think people are just seeing me for who I always was.
Yeah. So that's what you mean, yes.
Yeah, I don't... people who know me well know that's just who I am. Mm-hmm. Grief is just a part of life. It doesn't define our total self. No. In the beginning, there's very little control over grief. Grief is a physical presence. And so in the beginning of a tragedy, we have to allow people time for learning how to carry that heavy weight of grief throughout life's future steps. Mm-hmm. But it doesn't define our person.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I use the grief curve in my coachings with leaders. Mm. And I'm just going to tell you a little bit the anecdote of a few days ago. So I was there, and I always like to use examples when I talk about the grief curve. And for those that don't know what the grief curve is, it's in Dutch, it's the rouwcurve. And so we go through different emotions when we are in a kind of change, and the grief curve comes from death in the beginning. Mm-hmm. But it has been used as well now in the leadership because of trying to recognize when a change happens. You go through different emotions and be aware for everybody in the time that you have, it's different. Mm-hmm. And you have to be recognizing that as a leader as well, and having that discussion and knowing what role you need to play at what time in that curve. But anyway, so I was explaining a little anecdote where I was vulnerable and showing, or at least trying to explain what things could do to me when I have to go through a change. As I lost my ex-husband when the kids were 4. And a month later, I was laid off because of reorganization. So that was a really tough moment as well at that time. And I got in the shock, and then I was really angry. I was angry against him. I was angry with my life and everything around it. And I was like, why is this happening to me? And, and then you get into the frustration. Yeah, what next? How do I have to handle all this now? The financial scareness that was there, the energy scareness was, and there was a lot of scareness that happened to me at that moment. And so I was explaining this, and while I was starting to explain it, and then explained that, that I lost a lot of things, somebody in the group stand up and left the room. And I didn't realize it immediately that somebody left like that so fast, and somebody else ran after the person. And what I heard afterwards is that this guy just a year ago lost his born daughter that didn't get the life that she deserved, let's say. And so you realize that everybody has something to grieve about. There is a cross that we all carry with us. And I think I thought I was actually because in the end, what I said, end of the day, that was a good lesson for me today, to maybe not talk about something so personal that could be, because now this, I triggered something to somebody in the room. And then, because it was all guys, all managers, and then somebody said out loud, well, actually, you did a good job to do that, because it shows that we can be vulnerable. And now at least we know that this is still something that is triggering him quite a bit. So now we know as well how we need to deal with that. And I thought that was so beautiful, because just be yourself, just, because people can only understand how they have to act if they understand the emotions of others. And so
grief to me, and I know this sounds very strange in our current societal definition of grief or perception of grief, but grief to me is a privilege, because it means we loved. We loved a person. We loved, as you say, sometimes a job. If you lose a job, we loved a marriage. People divorce. There's grief associated with that. We grieve a move. We grieve the loss of a home. There are so many things in life to lose, which means that you originally had them, which means you're lucky. And so I try to bring grief always back to, it was a privilege to have loved something or someone so much to now be grieving. Yeah. Now, that said,
that's a great definition.
Well, it's easy to say that today, now.
But you have to live it. Huh?
But you have to live it. And so I do believe that as a society, we're moving forward with grief. That I would like to revolutionize. Yeah. Also, words like widow and widower. I don't identify with that. I always tell people I'm Dixie's wife.
Yeah.
I mean, he didn't divorce me.
Yeah. Exactly.
So I look at things probably in a different way, but I believe in I believe in them. And in the corporate world, people grieve all the time, both things that are happening at work. Did a colleague just get fired and everyone's upset about that? Is there a merger and there's uncertainty? Yeah. Uncertainty brings a type of grief. But more importantly,
or even, if I may say, a project that you launch and it's not going to get the end of it because of different circumstances that happen at the moment.
Scrap, poof. Yeah. We've all had that. It's rough. And then if we learn anything, we give ourselves time to mourn it, and then we move in the other pivoted direction we need to do to just keep living this thing called life. And I think that in companies, we also have to recognize the fact it's not even about hand-holding, but what you just said about the gentleman who left your speech. There's a recognition of the fact that everyone is going through something.
Yeah.
We don't have to handhold, but we need to be aware.
And recognize it, huh?
And choose our communicative style with these people. And choose our compassionate activities with these people. And I write about that in my book. It's okay to give someone time to get over something, profound losses or profound tragedies. And it's important as a leader to have a backup plan, not just for your employees, but for yourself.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because you may be the person going through something.
Yeah.
So it's vital to think through those scenarios, I think, and have plans ready. Dixie and I had backup plans ready for every single expedition. But we were so naive to always talk about it being one of the clients or someone else, so that when it happened, we had to, and those plans worked. I mean, we had every chance to rescue him had it been possible. Everything in place worked, except for the fact that the accident was immediately fatal and there was nothing more we could do. But these backup plans are there for a reason. Yeah.
I'm just going to ask a different question, and it's more curious from my side, but did you ever find the body?
No. The glacier is so deep. They're guessing it's between, in the beginning, they told us around 100 meters, and then 18 months after the accident with the review, they guessed it could be up to 300 meters deep.
Oh my God.
And so the rescuers were able to get down to 45 meters, and then they discovered that what had happened, what had to have happened. I mean, and so that's...
Did you find peace in this?
It took time. It takes time.
Yeah.
It takes time. There are times still that I know all of us wish we had a more physical closure. It forces us to deal with the mystery of death, probably. When there's not a tangible goodbye to a physical body, it's quite heavy, because it's forcing imaginative scenarios. Yeah. But I think a lot of peace came to our family, especially, and Dixie's loved ones, with the 18-month review that made it clear that it had been an immediate death and there'd been no lingering suffering. That was, I think, our biggest biggest concerns. And then comes this realization of, wow, he's one of the few people who get to have his remains in the Greenland ice cap.
Mm-hmm. That's what I was thinking as well.
You know, what a privilege, I suppose, that is.
Yeah.
Even though he didn't want to die, but if you have to have a place.
That'd be as well where you have your passion, right?
Yes, and the idea that the remains will eventually make their way out to sea, because a glacier is moving. So at some point, his remains will be in the sea.
You can measure that you see it.
Yeah, it's not in our lifetime, probably, but and Dixie loved the sea. He was born at the seacoast. He was a champion windsurfer and an accomplished kite surfer. Mm-hmm. He loved the sea. Yeah. So that's that.
What about the kids? Do the kids feel like this is a legacy to continue taking on, or are they completely offside on that?
Well, each of the kids is unique, and that's leadership. You know, leadership of a family is leadership. And that's why I made a joke about 6 months into my current situation. I made a joke that if widows could take over the world, this world would be in order. It would really be in order. Priorities.
Geen oorlog meer.
There's no time. There's no time for nonsense.
Yes.
There's no time for nonsense.
Yes.
If one loses a life partner, I'm not just talking about a woman losing a man. I'm talking about anyone with a life partner where a family has been established. However that family has been established, if there are children looking at you to put food on the table every day and to make sure that they're bathed and sent off to school, and those are the people you want in your team. Yeah. Those people know how to manage time. because there is no time to waste.
Yeah.
They lost their co-leader. And so with children, we always knew, we shared a very similar vision that they were each unique humans and never expected them to be little mini-me's. And that said, of the 4, we have one living quite an adventurous life with her partner in Canada. Yeah. Yes. Okay. And then the others each have their strengths, their passions, but they each have a piece of their father that is beautifully comes out in moments where I think, oh yeah, that their dad would do that. Yeah. Which is a lot of fun. Yeah. But to be like their dad, I wouldn't. Not for our 2 new grandsons either, who were born since Dixie passed. They have his blood, but let them grow up to be who they are.
So what's your vision now for the future for yourself, like in a few years' time, 5, 10, whatever? Do you have a vision on that?
Absolutely. I think there's something so powerful in knowing that I've discovered the talents that were being used all along are something that I can authentically go forward with. So focusing on working with people in their leadership skills, focusing on motivating teams, inspiring teams, continuing to take people as ecologically as possible to these sensitive polar areas with our guides, our top guides. I'd like to continue.
And you think everybody can do that, or do you need to do an assessment beforehand?
Well, we always do an assessment, but we don't have to. Every trip to the polar regions doesn't have to be by a top athlete. You know, these are trips that can be trained for. Absolutely, it depends on how long you want to be there and what your goal is. A consumptive trip to just stand there and say I got there is not really in my wheelhouse.
No.
I think there needs to be a reason, and
you need to come back with a change. I mean, a mental change, I guess, and physically probably as well.
I ask every single person who comes with me to these places to come back, or with our guides, come back an ambassador. Yeah, you were given an opportunity very, very few people could do. So tell them about it. Yeah. And an ambassador can be. You don't have to go out there and join some rebellious environmental group and attack ships that are whaling. I mean, you don't have to do any of that. Just come back, show your pictures, show one picture of the Northern Lights, tell one story about what it felt like to stand next to a penguin and let it peck at your boots. Share the awe of these places. And by doing so, you're inviting people to want to protect them together with the rest of us. Yeah. But I think the polar exploration, Dixie was the polar explorer. And that was his real passion. It was one of my passions. And so it's a wonderful gift that I can use it as a metaphor, but I have many others from my life and from my experiences. And I've learned only in the last 4 years that I apparently have a talent for helping people network, bringing people together.
See?
I do that.
Verbinder.
Een verbinder, yeah. Who would have thought? So, so yeah, that's something I'd like to continue doing as well. Networking doesn't necessarily mean getting out there for your own interest. For your own interests. I think we need to network in everything we do. Large companies, we're networking all the time with each other.
We're networking.
We're networking right now. Yeah. So my vision is to continue to produce in whatever way I can till my last breath happens. I don't have any view on retirement yet.
No.
I don't think that's anywhere in my near future. Who knows?
I think it, honestly, it's a little bit old-fashioned.
Retiring.
Yeah. I'm expressing it like that now, but I'm just thinking, if you do something that you really like, why would you sit not doing anything? You might as well continue giving, your best in what you like to do.
Absolutely.
But you don't need to do it anymore with the stress and the pressure. You can just do it on your own pace. But
if you're lucky, some people in retirement situations still need to work as well, which is it's sad commentary on
that's true,
on our societies. But feeling a sense of purpose when we wake up, and knowing that what you're giving back is needed. I think I'm very humble to the fact that health and my physical health will be the dominating factor.
Yes.
So I'm doing everything that I can to
Health
prevent.
is wealth, huh?
Health is wealth. But again, I'm humble. So if that suddenly changes, but I believe that writing books, public speaking, giving workshops, all of these things, just coaching, one-on-one coaching, all of these things I can do, I think, hopefully for quite a while.
Yeah.
And I want to.
Yeah.
So,
it's
and
so wonderful.
Traveling to take people places that inspire. I hope to be able to do that also.
Well, I wish it.
Thank you.
And I'm just going to end with a little thing that I was just thinking. You know, I lived in Massachusetts for a year, and the people that welcomed me, they're my American parents, and I still get in touch with them like almost every day because my mom in the US sends me like a positive quote every day. And on the 1st of April, and she's 70, she's 72, I think now, she sent a message to everybody because she also sends this quote to the whole family. And she sent, as of the 1st of May, I will be retiring. Because she's still working. And she works at the university. So she's still busy with kids and everything. And she said, I will be retiring. And then she sent a little bit later a second message. It's a joke.
April Fools. I think that's wonderful.
But it's keeping her so active and young as well. And
she has so much to give.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think I always knew that as a teacher. That's why I stopped teaching. I didn't have the experiences yet I needed to give those students. I was too young. I hadn't seen the world and I hadn't lived. And when I hear about teachers, people leaving the private sector to go back into education and teach, and then I think, okay, that's
a real one.
That's what we need.
Yeah.
Get back in there and help people see what the world really is about.
Yeah. So we're going to end the podcast here, unfortunately, because I could speak like hours with you. So we'll have to meet again if you
with pleasure
for a tea.
With pleasure, thank you.
But just in general, I mean, we have been giving already, or you have been giving already a lot of tips and things that people can take away. But if there is something that you would like to see changed in this world from a leadership perspective, what do you think it would be? What would be the one message that you want to give people so that they can take that on?
Show up.
Like that. That's the first rule of success as well.
Show up.
Yeah.
Show up and don't aim for perfection, because we can't show up in a perfect state ever. We're human. But show up and own. Own what you're doing. Ownership. And taking responsibility.
Be frequent on it as well, I guess.
Consistency. I mean, there are so many, but I think showing up says so much. When we appear, when we show up, when we take our seat at the table, and we show that we're interested enough by just being there, that's already such an important start as a leader. So if I have to pick one, I would say show up.
And I want to add to that, be interested instead of being just interesting.
Oh, yes. But then we get into a whole other topic on listening skills and really...
Well, it's part of leadership, right? But here we're talking about self-leadership as well.
It's everything when we really are listening to each other. But that's a whole other podcast.
We'll do that another time.
With pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much, Julie.
Thank you, Dominique.
Het was echt heel fijn om dat gesprek met u te voeren. Een beetje in de twee talen, maar... Zo diep, zo fijn. Ik heb er echt van genoten.
Dank je wel. Hartelijk bedankt.
Dus, voor onze luisteraars ook. Ik zou zeggen, als je vragen hebt voor Julie, mocht je mij die zeker doorsturen. Ik zou het heel fijn vinden als je het ook liked of een 5 sterren geeft, zodanig dat het ook door kan verwezen worden naar andere mensen die van dit gesprek kunnen genieten. Want ja, hoe meer mensen dat we kunnen inspireren, hoe beter dat het is.
Absoluut.
Dus voilà. In elk geval nogmaals bedankt.